Hey guys, Crypto Sunday, and we're still going down. How's everyone else doing? I am down about 4% this week. Bitcoin sort of doing a little better than that, I think. The altcoins obviously dragging things down a little. It's about 14,000. Considering the Nasdaq's down nearly 4% for the week, I think 4% down is not too bad, really. Obviously, we're a fair bit down from the Bitcoin top, sort of back at 108,000. But, we've had far worse corrections in the past. This is fairly mild compared to sort of 2017. Certainly 2021, we sort of had a 50% drop halfway through. But yeah, we'll have to see where we go, whether we bottom at some point. So looking at the coin shares report, I knew this was going to be rough, but you don't always know what other countries are doing. We only sort of really know the US spot ETFs, but yes, big red, biggest red sort of for the last year, certainly, probably ever in listed products. We saw 2.9 billion of outflows this week, bringing the 3-week total to 3.8 billion. I think people are sort of making a fairly big deal of this, considering the amount that has flowed in the last year. Most successful ETF launches ever, even if some of that is, hedge funds and some of that is just converting Bitcoin they already had to shares of the ETF, is still, it's still done pretty well. So what is not exactly a huge amount of outflow compared to assets under management, I think is pretty good, especially considering sort of risk off, in other markets as well. So bulk of this has come from Bitcoin, obviously, 2.6 billion, 300 million out of Ethereum. But then elsewhere, sort of a little bit surprising, 7.9 million out of multi-asset, again, compared to an enormous assets under management. Very little of this ever seems to move. Solana, 7.4 million of outflow, but then 5 million inflow into XRP, sort of bucking the trend of these outflows. Everyone still seems to love XRP. And then 15 million inflow into SUI, whether this was a new ETF in Europe or something. US obviously don't have anything new just yet, but that was quite interesting. A little bit into Litecoin, a little bit into short Bitcoins, no real surprise there. 1.2 million outflow out of Cardano, 20 million outflow out of other coins. So they've only got 640 between all of the others, and there was 20 million outflow out of there. And then by country, sort of largely outflows, a little bit going into Australia, and a reasonable amount going into Germany, 55 million, but then some sort of reasonably big outflows. Nothing too much from Brazil, nothing too much from Hong Kong either. So neither of them have got huge amounts. So we are going to get one more, at least one more red coin shares report on Monday. This week we've seen sort of largely outflows, one small net inflow day on Wednesday with a little bit into BlackRock and not a lot of outflows, but yeah, 74 million out, 143 million out, 134. And then the Friday, some reasonably big outflows from Fidelity, ARK, sort of ARK more notably, that's over 5% of assets under management, and sort of just continued little trickles out from the big grayscale. But yeah, 409 million. So yeah, that'll be a reasonably big outflow week. Similar situation on Ethereum. We saw one inflow day on the Tuesday instead of the Wednesday. Actually, a 10.7 million inflow into the old grayscale Ethereum. So this is not 1.5% fee like on Bitcoin. This is 2.5% expense ratio. So whether people are doing some sort of arbitrage or something and they're making money on that, but sort of accepting 2.5%, I don't know. If they're just buying it for exposure, then that's rather foolish. But yeah, that sort of made a positive day with a few inflows elsewhere. But yeah, mainly red, nothing huge. They're all sort of, mostly low double figures, 163 million, but yeah, that's about it. So last week I didn't cover that Michael Saylor and Strategy, or MicroStrategy as I'm going to continue to call them, did buy 20,356 Bitcoin for just shy of $2 billion. At, again, sort of not top ticking, but certainly buying at the local highs, I suppose. 97,514. Obviously, we're in sort of the mid 80s now again. Bitcoin yield is obviously irrelevant, and they are pretty much at 500,000 Bitcoin. They've raised their average to 66,357. Still not horrendous, but they're starting to get to a point where you could maybe see us getting to in the next bear market, whether that be sort of next year, the year after, whatever happens. So, yeah, I wouldn't be all that keen on holding sort of large amounts, for the next few years, certainly, because I think you could run into a sticky situation potentially with this. 500,000 Bitcoin is quite a lot. And they didn't buy any this week. You just got the usual strategy holds 499,000, and they didn't buy any because it does seem to feel like they have to tweet every week at the same time. So we had the announcement of the strategic Bitcoin reserve, and a lot of people seem to be disappointed. They are not planning on spending any taxpayers' money. They're not printing money or anything like that specifically to acquire new Bitcoin. They're basically saying what they hold is what they hold. They are saying that is estimated at 198,000 Bitcoin, worth 17.3 billion. Part of that is most people are saying belongs to Bitfinex, but they're sort of done this executive order to keep it, and anything else that they hold, which they are saying that they want to audit and see what they've got, and potentially, I suppose, if they find a little bit more than they were expecting, they could convert that into Bitcoin and hold that for the reserve. But yeah, obviously, 200,000 Bitcoin is a hell of a lot to be holding, and you could still have this sort of kick on to other countries thinking, we want 200,000. You've had already apparently discussions from the UAE, Russia, and China potentially on a Bitcoin reserve. Obviously, China, I think similar to the US, have acquired quite a lot, a couple of 100,000 through crime, similar to the US, and they could maybe just call that a crypto reserve similar to the US and not actually be buying any, but they may consider buying some. Similarly with Russia may sort of continue mining it and sort of acquire it that way. UAE maybe sort of consider buying some. But yeah, people were sort of rather unhappy that they're not going out on buying 200,000 a year as Cynthia Lummis's plan. I think this is probably for the best, really. Keep what they've got and basically signal to the world that it's a solid asset, and they're sort of calling it a store of value, and it should be the private sector really buying rather than governments. And you've had lots of people sort of weighing in, largely saying that it's sort of a good thing that they didn't actually announce any, that they were going to be purchasing any, and separating Bitcoin from the altcoins. They're sort of having the strategic Bitcoin reserve, and the digital asset stockpile is for things like XRP, Cardano, Ethereum, and Solana. So nice to separate those two. But yeah, I saw this as legitimizing the space and overall a good thing. And once people sort of calm down that the government aren't printing money to buy 200,000 a year, then they should see this as a positive thing as well. Something that has come up that did make me laugh, and I didn't realise sort of was quite so large, is that the US does have a strategic reserve in lots of things, and one of those is cheese. I didn't realise this is sort of maybe not quite, as it's being reported. The US government don't actually own 1.4 billion pounds of cheese. That's pounds in weight, so we're talking 600,000 tons of cheese. It's rather a lot of cheese. It is stored in various, they're calling them caves. They're not sort of more storage facilities. But yeah, a lot of this belongs to private companies, but it is sort of a stockpile, and it sort of started from the US buying the excess that farmers had, so that they didn't go out of business, I suppose, or have to drastically drop the price. And yeah, the US sort of acquired all of this, and so there is sort of 1.4 billion that 1.4 billion pounds or 600,000 tons of cheese that the US and private companies sort of own, if you like. So you can have a strategic reserve of anything, basically. This, I think, seemed to sort of partly slip under the radar that the Texas Senate have passed a bill to have a crypto reserve, and that would mean sort of buying, because they haven't acquired any through crime or any other means, as far as it sort of seems to be known. So if Texas do go for it, this is past the Senate. It has to go through the Texas House. They sort of have a very fragmented system in the US. They sort of have their own house from the looks of it, but it is very dominated by Republicans. So the thinking is that this would likely go through. Obviously, Texas is basically the home of the Republican Party. So yeah, they keep saying there's 20 states with crypto bills, sort of strategic reserve bills in place, but a lot of these are seeming to be sort of struggling to get through. Texas could be, maybe one that does, and if they do, and you might get other states, especially pro-Republican states, start to sort of follow suit, even if they initially said no. So this was interesting, and we'll have to see, assuming it passes the Texas House, how much they're going to allocate to it. Maybe they go with BlackRock's 1 to 2% of portfolio recommendation, and maybe acquire a little bit. I just keep chuckling as well as more and more of these, announcements of lawsuits being dropped come through as well. The SEC sort of dropping their lawsuit against Cumberland DRW. This seems to be a platform selling what they were saying was unregistered securities, handling more than 2 billion in crypto assets. And if the SEC are sort of largely coming out saying these are not securities, then companies trading them would not be trading unregistered securities. So a lot of these are quickly getting dropped. I keep sort of joking that Mark Ueda and Hester Pierce sort of basically have these coming through their desk and are just saying, get this out of my face. I don't want to read it. Drop it. It's not worth it. So yeah, funny to just keep seeing these racking in. So I mentioned before that I do follow people like Raoul Powell and the sort of Real Vision platform as one of the macro people that I get a bit of an indicator on the markets for. And yeah, I'd sort of been seeing some of the things that they were putting out, not really coming to fruition, over the past couple of months. And then all of a sudden, last sort of week or two, some of the things that they've been predicting seem to be falling into place. They've been saying deflation, not deflation, but disinflation for quite a while, and you have had the US Trueflation Index sort of drastically coming down in the last few weeks. Whether we sort of get the actual inflation following suit, you would sort of think one would follow the other. Trueflation obviously a little bit more up to date, and this has dropped even from here. They're down to I think Trueflation US is down at sort of 1.36% now, so it's dropped a hell of a lot. And we have US CPI coming in the next week, so whether that sort of prices in some more rate cuts, we'll have to see. They've been saying they expect the dollar to be coming down for quite a while, and it was sort of staying stubbornly high up at sort of 106, 107, and then all of a sudden in this last week basically it's dropped to 103 and a half, I think it was, sort of basically 1 point every day. Just kept seeing it come down and down. And people like Julian Bittel and Raoul Powell have sort of been saying that this would lead, financial conditions easing, and then maybe a little bit after, risk assets coming back on. Basically, gold doing well, potentially sort of. Crypto doing well, potentially gold doing well as well, and stocks most likely. But we might have a little bit of pain sort of in the short term, and we're sort of certainly getting that pain at the moment. But we're also having the dollar index sort of coming down, and they're saying that would be loosening conditions. You've got oil sort of down low as well, and we'll have to see where this goes from here. So pointing out as well that when you get these sharp moves in the dollar index, this is 4 standard deviations. These red highlighted areas here are sort of 4 standard deviations from on the downside basically, and sort of every time you've had these before in the sort of March 2020 crash, at the end of 2022, and sort of just after the middle of 2015, these have sort of marked bottoms in the Bitcoin market, and it's sort of then gone on a reasonable run. We should always say correlation doesn't mean causation, but this does seem to be sort of 2 things that would line up. Dollar index lowering is sort of, basically when stock markets take a downturn, people tend to pile into the dollar. But at the moment, it seems to be sort of, if the US is taking a bit of a downturn, people not actually wanting to get into the dollar, and things being priced in dollars generally means it's devaluing and they would go up. So we've had a little bit of a downturn, sort of 20%, 25%, I think 27% off the top of Bitcoin, and we are 4 standard deviations below, or we've had that a couple of days ago maybe, or this was yesterday. I expect this was a couple of days ago, and we could be in one of those uptrend periods. But I just think a lot of what they've been saying for the last few months, maybe they were a bit early, but some of it is starting to fall into place. So it's pain for the moment, but we'll have to see how long it lasts. I'm certainly buying the disappointment in the Bitcoin strategic reserve, and not being what people wanted, but I still see as positive, and sort of all of these factors looking reasonably good for the medium term, even if the short term is a bit of a dip. I do quite like it. So we'll see. Coins for the week, a little bit of a mixed bag, to be honest. Bitcoin down 1.7%, Solana down 4.5%, still sort of taking a little bit of a hit with meme coins not doing particularly well, but I still think that's meme coins are a bit of a test for other things coming on the chain, and it certainly proved that it's able to handle a lot more. Ethereum down 3%, Chainlink up 1.7%. So, as I say, not everything doing bad. Gito down 5%, Helium down 8%. Their metrics aren't looking particularly good. I still think they can come back, but certainly took a bit of a dip there. Honey, the Hive Mapper token, is up 2.8%, Metaplex down 8.5%, and Radium down 18%. So that really was a fairly poor pick, down 72% overall on that one now. But again, it is worth noting that the coins that I sold to buy these positions are also down, maybe not 72%, but certainly a few of them are worse than sort of 26, as a few of these are down. So I haven't sort of bought a high point on these and then they've gone down. I've sold coins that were down for different coins that were are still down. So that's somewhat neutral, but we'll have to see whether this is the bottom soon and how things go. But leave your thoughts in the comments below, and like and subscribe. See you soon.